So tell the world who you are and what you do.
My name's Faith Whited, and I have a kennel called Superior Canine Kennels, and we hog hunt as well, and we call that part of everything Voodoo Hogdoggers.
So give me a rundown of the breeds you work with.
So I work with my own personal crosses that I've been breeding for the past 15 years. They're a combination. Well, I'll say this. My foundation male is 75% American Pit Bull Terrier and 25% American Bulldog. The American Pit Bull Terrier lines that's in him is Old Family Red Nose, Hemphill Wilder lines, and Jeep, Colby, and Mayday. That's kind of he's scatterbred.
You said Mayday?
Mayday, yes.
Okay. And what is and what type and or bloodline of American Bulldog?
I used to have it written down. He's almost 13 years old now in November. So all the moving I've done for years and stuff like that, the paperwork that I had written down for him, I lost it. I used to know exactly what belonged to the American Bulldog. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it was Scott type, not Johnson. But his grandfather was Pure, and that was his dam's father. And they were a purpose-bred cross. His dad was Pure American Pit Bull Terrier, but his mom was only half.
I gotcha. So from there, explain kind of how you ended up where you're at now.
Okay, so I crossed Tank. Tank is his name. That's my foundation male's name. I crossed him with the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Her name is Dixie. And she was a blood trail dog, and pretty much any wild game you wanted to put her on, she would do it. The dog could track, the dog could catch. She was a savage. She was extremely intelligent, super trainable. Tank's a little more on the stubborn side, so I wanted something a little bit more balanced whenever I crossed into him. So she was just perfect, and I crossed them, and I got the pick of the litter, a female Malibu, and I crossed Malibu 2 times. The first time I crossed her to a Merle male named Ruger, and he's an American Bulldog Johnson type and American Bully. And I got Voodoo. She's the first off of Malibu that I got, the only female I kept from the litter. And then the second time I bred Malibu, I bred her to Jameson. And Jameson is a American Staffordshire Terrier crossed with Pocket American Bully. And that's where I got my boy Ragnar and my girl Aspen. And they're pretty much like, that's what I'm breeding with now. All the pups I have on the ground now are just from them.
Okay. So how many do you have in total?
For my crosses?
Oh, so you have 2 separate lines going.
Yeah, so I also have, like, I have a Dalmatian, I have a Tweenie, and I have my 2 American Pit Bull Terriers. So I have quite the little deal of dogs, but they all hunt. I hunt with all of them. My cross program, I call my crosses hog bull hounds. It's a breed I've been wanting to create my own breed for a very long time, so I've been working on it. I've only produced 6 litters in the past 15 years. That's because I've been so precise on what I breed and how I breed. I want to make it perfect, and they speak for themselves as far as tracking and catching. I wanted a dog that was a solo dog, a dog that could do it all.
So With all that said, how many dogs do you have in total?
I think we have 19.
19? Nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have 19. I haven't counted in a long time. I just, I know all their names by heart, and I know all their information by heart and stuff like that, but I never really keep track of number.
Okay.
I do have to buy dog food every 3 days, and it's like $120. Dog food.
So, explain to me a little bit about, as far as a hunting dog, do you have a preferred size, a general weight that you look for?
Not necessarily. I've seen, for instance, Tank is in the 80 to 85 pound range especially in his prime. He was about 85 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
He had wind for days. The dog had stamina. He could go.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a big dude. He's tall. But then I also have, like, my smallest was Jameson, and Jameson was like 49 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, I don't necessarily have a preferred size. I do like the longer legs. Just a proportionate dog all around. I would have to say, if I had to give an example out of the dogs that I have now, the perfect build on a dog and weight would be Ragnar. And Ragnar's about 60 pounds. He's got legs, but not too much leg. He's perfectly proportioned. He's the one I sent you the picture of with the cropped ears. I said it was my favorite picture of him.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, that was a white and red dog?
Yes, he's chocolate and white.
Okay, I gotcha.
Like a reddish chocolate.
I gotcha.
But to me, he'd be perfectly proportioned, and he's about 60 pounds.
Right, okay. And where are you located?
East Texas.
East Texas. So East Texas, explain to me a little bit of the climate.
Extremely humid.
Extremely humid. How do the dogs manage the heat?
They actually do really, really well in the heat. I don't really like to hunt them too much in this kind of weather. If I do, it's usually nighttime. We do a lot of night hunts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still humid at night, and I'll be drenched in sweat like an hour being out there, But the dogs, they free roam. Like, from the time that we get there and turn them loose, it's all on them to cover ground, fan out. The way that I train my dogs is, if there's nothing to be found within a certain distance, they come back and do check-ins. Mm-hmm. So we continuously walk, and try to stick to a certain trail to try to make sure that we don't get lost and we don't get turned around, and the dogs just fan out in all directions. And if they come across a hog, usually we'll hear the squeal, or we'll also, if they're close to us, which isn't very often, we can tell if they smell something, because then their nose is right up in the air and they're going crazy trying to figure out which direction it's coming from.
I gotcha. So this is a question I ask most doggers. As far as temperament, how hot-blooded something is, how aggressive it is, how would you compare the male to the female?
Well, males, I feel like males are like really easygoing. Sometimes they can have a one-track mind. Females, they tend to just be a little bit more, I guess you could say. It's hard because I usually favor my males over my females. Mm-hmm. But that's just on a connection level. But as far as hunting, they both perform quite similarly to me. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're hunting with other male dogs, and I have my male dogs. My dogs are not aggressive, but if another dog gets dominant, they don't take no shit either. So, you know, that's something you do have to watch with males. I have yet to have that happen with my females. Besides Mercy, which is our American Pit Bull Terrier. But, you know, she's an American Pit Bull Terrier, so that's kind of a given. With my crosses, I expect a lot more leniency when it comes to, you know, working with another dog. Just because the way I bred them to be very pack-oriented. We don't really use bay dogs. The only dogs we've ever ran with our bulldogs was we had a dash hound, Chihuahua, and Chihuahuas. So I know some people might laugh at that, but anyone who's ever seen my little boogie work know that he's the real deal. He may not be able to grab a hog, but he will find them just as quick. And yes, because a lot of the time the hogs don't even realize that it's a dog coming at them, because he's like a rabbit. You know, like he's so small and he's white, and he's just like he kind of hops. He's really quiet when he's in the woods. So all you kind of hear is him hopping around. And so when he comes up on pigs, then he starts barking. And then by that time, my bulldogs are already right behind him, so they're right on top of it. So if he finds the ball, they're right on it, and they seal the deal.
I know there has to be a certain level of grit to a hog dog. Can that also transfer over into what it takes to be a personal protection dog?
I think it can be. I'm working towards that. I do want to make, because I'm still like halfway to me in my development of my dogs and the breed I want to create and everything like that. I want to have a different class, it's still my bloodline, but I want to have a separation a little bit onto which ones can do all the above and which ones can do either or when it comes to personal protection and hog dogs. Now, with several of my dogs, they're super great with people. I can take them hunting with strangers and their dogs, and I don't have to worry about them putting hands on my bulldogs, getting them off a hog, or any other situation like that, because I know my dogs are safe. But if someone comes on my property, you know, that might not be the same outcome. You know? So I feel like, you know, there is that there is a bridge there to where they can do both.
So would you say there's certain dogs you have that are more protective than others?
Yes, absolutely. There's certain dogs that I own that are way more protective than the other ones. Like my girl Voodoo, she is extremely protective, and even if I like wrestle around with Junior or something like that, you know, she has bitten him on the butt for roughhousing with me because she gets super protective. Okay,
all right. Now, would you say that came out naturally, or did you have to train that?
Definitely naturally. I would say her son, Beetlejuice, he's kind of the same way as well. And I'm working towards probably working with Jake on doing the personal protection stuff with him and seeing where it goes.
Okay. So here's a question I've been asking everybody lately, and I want to get your take on it. Do you think the dog naturally can sense evil? I know that's an interesting question.
Well, it is. Because in my experience, I've had good dogs trust really good people, and also trust really bad people.
Okay.
I think it just depends on the dog intellectually. If they're intelligent enough to pick up on that. Some dogs don't know, and they just trust everybody. Because I also used to work in rescue, so I've encountered lots and lots of people, lots of dogs, and so it is a really interesting question. I think to an extent, certain dogs can sense evil, bad intentions. I think it's more or less like an energy that you give off that dogs can either it sits right with them or that doesn't.
Right. It's just kind of a curveball question that I've been throwing at people because a lot of people have a lot of different views on that. I've only had like a couple experiences where, it's like, why doesn't my dog particularly not like this person who's a friend of mine? And then it funny enough, in the end, I end up not being friends with that person anymore because they were kind of weird in a way. So I've been asking that question a lot recently in the interviews. How often do you breed?
Like I said, I've had 6 litters in the past 15 years.
Okay, so not very often.
No, not very often. Here recently, I've bred more because I've got my, I say Tank's my foundation male, but as far as my foundation for what my goals are, I've finally reached that halfway point of where the dogs I'm producing from now are what I wanted. And I'm just making that better, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. Now, is it strictly function, or is there a specific look you prefer?
It's all function to me. Looks don't really matter. For example, whenever I brought Merle into my bloodline from Ruger, which is my girl Voodoo, her father. Now, a lot of people, kind of was like, well, why do you want to add Merle? A lot of people have bad thoughts on Merle or, stuff like that. You probably know this topic well. But whenever I chose Ruger to breed in Malibu, it was because of the fact that he was an amazing working dog. He was a coyote dog, a hog dog. He could do it all. And he was a savage. And he was big. But at home, that's another thing I like about my dog. I like in their temperament. I like a dog that can sit at home and can be lazy, can do absolutely nothing for a month straight if you don't want them to. Or if they're out there in the field, they're out there in the woods, they get the job done on site. It's the kind of dogs I like. And Ruger was exactly that. The first time I seen him on a couple coyotes, I was like, I love that dog because he got along with other dogs just fine. But when it came to a coyote, when it came to a hog, he had no mercy. And I loved that about him because, I also fancy the American Pit Bull Terrier and stuff like that. I like a dog that has that off switch.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. You're looking at a litter of puppies. They're between 6 weeks, 8 weeks old. When you're just looking at the litter and how they interact with each other and how they interact with people, how do you select what you want to keep?
Well, with my most recent litter, off of Voodoo and Ragnar, it's a half-sibling breeding. The way that I picked them was I already knew that the whole litter was going to be great because both parents are great. But what drew me to pick certain ones from the beginning would have to be, I guess, their tenacity when it came to just being there. First one to get on the boob, kind of push the other siblings off. They made their presence known. That's why I picked the only male in the litter, and that's how he was. He was always the first one there. Kind of pushed the other siblings out of the way. But it's also how I picked my second pick, which was the runt. She may have not been the biggest. She may have not been, the most, physically. She's more leaner compared to her siblings, and she's smallest. But she's super tenacious. And so that's kind of like what I look for. I look for the way that they that strive to survive kind of aspect, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Just little fighters from the beginning, tough pups. And then as they start to age out, and they start being more social with each other and with interactions with like me and my children and stuff like that, I look for just kind of super people oriented. I like seeing them being social with each other, social with people, social with contact. Just more naturally. I like seeing that because that tells me that dog's more likely going to have a really good temperament as far as handling.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they get a little bit older, so we're talking, like you said, about 6 to 8 weeks at that point. I actually I'll bring a hog, a little piglet, to the yard, and I'll just watch how they act. Even if they don't jump on it and try to grab it, I just like to watch how they react to it. I like to see if they're just going to go for it, if they're going to watch it. I don't really like seeing a dog that's just going to stay off in the back, in the corner, not wanting nothing to do with it, even if their siblings are trying to have something to do with it. I like I said, I'm a confident dog, so I want to see that spunk, and that drive a little early. At about 9 weeks old, I tested 3 puppies. I do 3 at a time that way because I also treat the hogs after the dogs are on them.
Mm-hmm.
I treat them and make sure I doctor them up and stuff like that, just so they stay around and we can reuse them if needed. So I do 3 puppies at a time. And the first 3 that I tried the first time off of Voodoo and Ragnar, was Malice, Wild Card, the Runt, and who was it? Wicked. Yeah, Wicked. Okay, which is the biggest female. I tried all 3 of them, and where Wicked didn't grab a hold of the piglet off the bat, she stayed interested. Even when her sisters were grabbing a hold of it, because they didn't hesitate at all. Yeah. So the little runt girl was the first one. She grabbed a hold of that little piglet and she'd hang on for dear life. Mm-hmm. She did not hesitate. It came completely natural to her. She's only 9 weeks old. She's the littlest. But it was completely natural to her. She grabbed a hold of it, and it was wet and raining outside, and it was muddy in the kennel, and they did not care. Mm. And I like seeing that, But like I said, when they're puppies, I'm okay with them, not grabbing a hold of it. I'm okay with them, showing interest. I pay attention to who shows interest and who doesn't.
Mm. Okay. So you mentioned that this litter was a half-sibling breeding, and that brings me to another question that's so heavily debated. How close do you think it's safe to breed?
Well, I think it depends on, I guess the way I always looked at it was, if you're not knowledgeable, at least to a basic extent of genetics, you should stick with just the regular pairings that most people do, with this outbreeding,
Yeah, outcross.
But if you're knowledgeable and you don't you've done, you know, everything that you need to do to learn about genetics and stuff like that. I'm still learning even now. I never think that you can learn too much or know everything. I'm still even learning, but I felt that the closest I'll go is half sibling, or I know in some cases people do father daughter and stuff like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it as long as you know what you're doing. I'm not against inbreeding. I'm not against line breeding, you know, and so on.
And what does your kennel setup look like? Do you use kennels, chain spaces? I predominantly used to use chain spots, but because I do live in Texas and it's illegal here, I had to change everything to kennels. So my kennels are like a mixture of gravel and concrete. And they're retriever kennels. I have them set up where, you know, they're 5x5s. But I also have chain spots that I keep in the yard that are vacant. And I will allow a couple hours each dog to have time on the chain spots. You know, and I'll work them with flirt pole, or just let them, you know, play in the water, play in the pool with a water hose, whatever, you know, whatever they like to do, even if it's just be on the chain and relax, you know. Some dogs like to dig in the dirt and, you know, whatever they like to do. So it's kind of I guess I would say a mixture. I do the kennels and the chain spots. I alternate. I gotcha. Yeah, I don't care who says what. I think chain spots are absolutely great. They give the dog more room to stretch, more room to run.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the fur moms fuck it up for everybody.
It really, and you know, I'll say this too. I know this is kind of off topic, but when it comes to the chain situation, especially with the laws that passed in Texas, you got a lot of those fur moms that are saying, you know, the stray dog problem and is worse than it ever has been. Well, you have to think about it. You made tethering and chains illegal. So now there's dogs that are escape artists are running everywhere. And people are tired of dealing with getting in trouble for having their dogs on a chain, even if it's a proper chain spot. They're just like, you know what? You know, they just let their dogs do whatever, or they just altogether stop owning dogs. It's kind of sad for me to see because, you know, even when I worked in rescue, I never had an issue with people having dogs on chains. As long as that dog wasn't able to tangle, wrap, you know, it was a proper chain spot, you know?
Yeah, and honestly, like, I've always thought, and I haven't gotten my piece of property yet, but I've always said, like, I don't give a damn what people say. I'm going to use chain spots because a dog can sometimes climb out of a kennel. A strong enough bulldog can break the roof on a kennel. They can dig their way out if you're not using concrete or you're not using proper flooring. And what most people don't understand is a dog on the chain, once he's used to being on the chain, doesn't even notice he's on a chain anymore.
Oh yeah, they think they're free.
Yeah, they're just running in a circle. They don't give a damn.
And plus, you have more access to your animals on a chain. I can go up and pet all my dogs when they're on the chain spot. In the kennel, I have to worry about them getting out and getting loose, or, you know, and if I have another dog on the chain spot, you know, and I have a dog that wants to get out of the kennel because they want on the chain spot, it's just, to me, it's very difficult to have hands on your animal and spend time with them in a kennel. I mean, compared to a chain spot, it doesn't make any sense to me how people believe that it's more ethical to keep dogs in kennels.
Yeah, and if you even have like a 10-foot chain, what I forgot the exact math of it, but if you have a 10-foot chain on a swivel, you can fit like, however, you could fit like multiple 6x10 kennels in the same amount of space. So technically, when a dog's on a 10-foot chain, he has so much more room to run.
Yeah, I think at one point I actually looked it up. It was over 700 square foot that's a 15-foot chain.
Yeah, I mean, that alone is just like, hello.
It's a complete circle, 360 all the way around.
Yeah, there's so much more room to exercise, so much room, especially with a good bulldog or you know, pit bull terrier. I mean, they could run, jump, they can get their zoomies out, you know, run in circles for 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, and plus too, the kennel accidents happen too, where the dog can get caught. Their foot can get caught between the bars on a kennel, or you know, a piece of chain link or something is just sticking out, pokes them in the eye. I've seen more dogs actually, especially with hard keepers. You got dogs that are just so rough on themselves and everything that's theirs. Being in a kennel is detrimental to them and their health. I mean, my dogs, they're okay with the kennels only because I still allow that. You know, the benefits of having a chain, you know, I still allow them to go out, you know, a couple hours at a time, you know, to do what they want to do on the chain spot. And they look forward to it. I tell you what, you know, when my dogs are in the kennels and I grab their collar to put it on them, to put them on the chain spot, they go crazy. They're so excited. They're like, finally,
right,
out of this cage.
Some fucking freedom.
Yes, exactly. I kind of hate that I have to do that, you know, because I like seeing my dogs happy, and I've always strived to make my dogs happy. You know, and people think because they keep them on, people keep their dogs on chains that they're not happy, and most of the dogs I've met in my life that were the happiest were always outside dogs, either had free to roam or had chains.
So, walk me through a little bit of what you feed and what the regiment looks like.
So everybody's feeding is different, and I know it can be a controversial topic. What works for me. But Diamond High Energy and Diamond Puppy.
Okay.
Dog food. I mix it together in a plastic sealable trash can. I clean it between each exchange of feed. Once one trash can is empty, then I'll clean it out and dry it out and add more feed to it. I feed that once a day, and I usually feed it in the summertime. I feed it in the evening time when it's cooler, when the sun goes down. In the wintertime, I will feed in the middle of the day, pretty much whenever I have time. In the wintertime, I also will incorporate slop, what I call slop. And it's pretty much just like scrap meat, fish, just kind of a mixture of that, like beef tallow, duck fat. Like, I'll just mix a bunch of stuff in, bone broth, and a pot of water, and just make a slop out of it. And I'll feed that to my dogs with like a cup of dog food on top of that. Depending on the size of the dog, I might up the feed to 2 cups or whatever. For puppies, I feed puppies twice a day. And as they get older, I'll make it to where it's once a day, to where they get used to the same regimen as the bigger dogs. But all my dogs, they fare well with how I do it. If I give any raw, you know, during the summertime, it's usually, you know, like frozen or refrigerated. I also, if I go fishing, we'll feed like raw fish, like freshly caught fish, to them. They'll eat it alive. Some of them will, some of them won't. So it's just kind of just random. And they also eat hog meat. Anytime we get a pig in the woods, We dispatch it, and we'll quarter it up and take the back straps off, and not a bit of it goes to waste. We'll cut up the liver, the heart, even the lungs, like everything we'll feed to the dogs, let them eat it. And then along with the meat, and then we'll eat the meat too.
Let me ask you this. I've heard kind of mixed arguments on this. Do you believe in feeding the hog meat raw, or do you cook it?
I feed it raw.
Okay. And you've never had any kind of digestive issues or anything like that?
No. I expect my dogs to be hardy enough to be able to handle raw feed and raw hog. You know, like I expect that from them. To me, that just shows that they're a healthy dog.
Now, dealing with, you know, the bull breeds and pit bulls and things like that, dogs that are predominantly outdoor dogs, have you ever dealt with any kind of skin issues?
I've dealt with some sensitivity, but not a lot. If I do notice sensitivity in dogs, like there's a few times where I've added a dog to my yard that I was thinking could be a potential out that I'll raise. You know, once it proves itself, I could use it as a potential out for my program. But if it starts to show any types of allergies or sensitivities in that way, I don't necessarily like to use them in my program. That stuff's really hard for people to deal with, especially when they have outdoor dogs and outdoor working dogs. It's just a lot of maintenance, extra maintenance that shouldn't, not necessarily necessary. I got 2 pups right now that I recently acquired. And I really like the dogs. Dogs have great temperament. They're just babies right now. But they do have a really bad allergy. They've been house puppies their whole life so far. So they're born inside, stuff like that. We're trying to see if their immune system will correct itself. But if it doesn't, I won't be keeping them nor adding them to my program. So that's kind of how I feel about the sensitivities. As far as skin issues and stuff like that, I try to avoid it unless it's, something that's completely out of the fact that it's not health related or skin related. It's just like, for example, like mosquitoes and stuff like that. If it's just bugs getting at them and irritating them, that's understandable. Like I've seen that with some of my personal dogs. The mosquitoes get at them real bad because with all the flooding we've had down here, the mosquitoes are really, really, really bad. They're relentless.
Gotcha.
So I think if it's just a natural, like hereditary type of an allergy or something like that, I don't really like dealing with it personally.
Okay.
But I have seen it.
So, is there any other breed you're interested to get involved in at this point? Something not necessarily to add to your program, but just another breed you're interested in.
Where do you want to start at?
Yeah, Junior's is where you want to start at because I love lots of dogs.
Okay, all right.
I want all the dogs, but
right. I want some Rottweilers. I want some Malinois. I want some band dogs. I totally get it.
I think my biggest interest right now that I've kind of been looking into, but I've been looking at the Jack Russells and Bull Terriers. My oldest son, his dream dog is a Bull Terrier, and I prefer the English Bull Terriers. The working type over the show type of Bull Terriers that you mostly see.
God forbid you had to start over. You lost your whole yard. Where would you go? Who would you be in contact with? What would you pick? How would you start over again? I know that's a tough one.
There is a kennel. I think this is what it's called. I think it's called Game Lab Kennels.
Okay.
they do American Pit Bull Terrier, American Bulldog crosses, I believe, if I have that correct. Because I've only spoke to them through social media before in the past. They have some really, really nice crosses. And if I had to start over, I would start over the same way that I started with what I got now, is the American Pit Bull Terrier, American Bulldog cross.
Okay.
And you know, if and I don't sell very many pups, but if I had any out there, you know, that if I lost all my dogs and I had to go somewhere else, I would hope that they would have some of my productions, and that's where I'd go. But if I didn't have those options, my first option would have to be going to someone who purpose breeds American Bulldog, American Pit Bull Terrier crosses.
Okay. Now, what do you expect from a potential client, and what can they expect from you?
So my contracts are like 9 pages long. And that's a co-owned contract that I mostly do, because usually if I sell a dog, it's going to go on a co-own. That way I can make sure my dogs don't end up in a shelter, a rescue, or somewhere I can't keep tabs on it. So I expect, you know, a contract between me and the buyer, and I also expect them to agree to our puppy policy. So I have a puppy policy that I just pretty much put out there as a public announcement and make it very known, you know, kind of our process of how we do things and stuff like that. That's on my Facebook. I actually believe I have it pinned to my Facebook page on my newsfeed. So I have it pinned there, and it kind of explains. It's very, very in depth. But what buyers can expect from me when getting a puppy is lifetime support. I'm always going to be there to have your back, have that dog's back. If you come on hard times, you know, and everybody does, I will be there to help. Not just take the dog away, you know. The dog can come stay with me, and we can work out a situation where, like, you know, if you can afford to pay for dog food, that's all I'm going to ask of you. For me to take the dog in for you, so that way when you get back on your feet again, the dog is yours still. If you can no longer keep the dog at all, the dog always comes back to me. And if you would like to take part in, if the dog doesn't stay with me and I find another home for it because you're not getting the dog back, I would love for you to be a part of finding a new home for that dog. I try to be like, you buy a dog from me, we're family. So with puppies, because the caliber of puppies that I'm producing now, especially with like some of my line and breeding crosses, I got some really high drive dogs, and not everybody has the time to instill in those puppies what they need to make great family and working dogs. So I offer a 4-month boarding training program with each one of my puppies. I expect the buyers to pay for the feed and basic veterinary care for the puppies when they're with me. After the essential vet care and stuff that I already provide by the time they're 10 weeks old. So from 10 weeks to 4 months, if they want, they have the choice. They don't have to, but I highly recommend it. That way, the puppies get hands-on with training, with the kids, being around stuff that's easily excitable. We can work on impulse control. Because they have so much drive, they don't really know what to do with it, and sometimes that can get them in trouble when they're puppies and they just can't control all their urges. And then, you know, like leash training, the normal basic puppy stuff. But yeah, riding around in the vehicles, being around the other dogs in the pack that we have, you know, it's just a lot of one-on-one and a lot of just us and them. Compared to some people, you know, they work and they're not with their puppies all the time. I pretty much take that burden away from the owners to make sure that they get a perfect start to their lives before they leave and go to their new homes.
That's actually impressive. And I think, honestly, I respect that, because that would give so many more people a good start. Like, there's so many people that they get puppy fever and, oh, I want to get a puppy, and then when they get the puppy, it's so over the top, they can't handle it, and they end up having a bad experience. I think if more breeders were to do that, a lot less dogs would end up in shelters.
Oh yeah, I agree. We also microchip our puppies, so if for some reason our great relationship with that buyer or whatever, you know, happens, if that dog ends up in the wrong hands, I make sure that it's microchipped in our kennel name or my name personally. That way, if it ends up in a place where it's not supposed to be, I get notified. We do not want to add to the overpopulation. We don't want our dogs in circumstances that they should never be in the first place. But yes, I agree. I feel like a lot of breeders should take that extra mile when it comes to the puppies they produce, especially working dogs. Especially with bulldogs, not just any working dog, but bulldogs. I think it's very important, because those dogs can sometimes get in a lot of trouble. You know, I've had puppies get easily excitable. By children, and try to bite, chase. You know, I've even seen Malinois puppies do it. You know, where they get easily excitable, and then their drive switch turns on, and they're just acting on instincts, and they chase, they bite. You know, and it can cause a lot of problems with people who aren't expecting that much of a puppy.
Where can people find you?
So on my Facebook, Faith Whited. My cover photo is Voodoo Hogdoggers. Usually I always keep it that. And then I have Instagram. It's the same thing as SCK Voodoo Hogdoggers. And TikTok, SCK Voodoo Hogdoggers.